Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about something amazing. We are going to be putting everything that we have learned in our mentorship program in this particular video. So today we are going to be talking about building a leaderboard ranking system in Flutter. So I'm going to give you guys a general guide to show you how to use Firebase authentication, Firebase Firestore to build a leaderboard system. So a leaderboard ranking system is used to display top users based on a specific metric. In our case, we are going to be using scores, but there are different metrics that you can use when you want to build a leaderboard system. You can use scores, you can use achievements or activities, right? So let's talk about the requirements, things that you need before you can build, like things you need to consider before building a leaderboard system. First, you need to consider the ranking criteria. What determines the ranking? Is it score? Is the ranking based on time? Is it based on streak? These are the things you need to have in place before you consider building a leaderboard system. In our case, I'm going to be showing you using scores, right? That's what I'm going to be using for this very example. Then another criteria is the sorting order. Higher score, better rank, or lower time, better rank. Those are just the things you need to consider when you're sorting the items or the leaderboard data. Then you need to look about time scope. So time scope, it's more like the way you want to filter the data. Do you want to filter based on all time, daily, weekly, global, locally, or monthly leaderboard? So these are what you also need to consider, right? The time scope. Then fourth, we talk about user identification. How will users be uniquely identified? Most systems, you can go with their username, their email address, or their user ID. Most times, it's very much advised that you use user ID because user ID tends to be unique across users. Okay, then you can use their username to display them on the leaderboard ranking. Then another thing you need to consider is storage and scalability. Will you use database or in-memory storage? So it's always good you use database. Database is better because it gives you the ability to sync the user data. Since it's a leaderboard, everybody around the world that are using your app need to be able to see their data. So database is very much advised. All right. And you need to implement some kind of real-time functionality. I'm going to show you guys all these examples in this particular video. So stay tuned because the ending part is going to be so amazing. Then let's talk about the database schema for a leaderboard. I try as much as possible to make this video simple, right? Just to give you guys a general guide that will give you an idea in case you want to build your next leaderboard system. And you can use it in your quiz app or any app application at all that requires leaderboard. So looking at this, you can see we have the user board since we are using Firebase. The user board is more like the collection. Then you have the user one, which is like the doc ID. Then inside the doc ID, we have the username, the score, the user ID, which I'll be using to uniquely identify users and update their scores as well. Then the score is what I'll be using to rank the user. Then we have timestamp, okay? So this timestamp, I'll be using it to filter based on weekly dates, and also I'll be using it for some other thing. I'm going to discuss about it later. So let's proceed. So imagine in a scenario where you have ties in the leaderboard. How do you go about handling that? This is where I have two methods that you can use to handle that using first come, first serve. And for you to be able to handle first come, first serve effectively, you need a secondary sorting mechanism, which is first we are going to sort by score, and then we are going to sort by timestamp. So that timestamp is more like who was the first person that got the highest score based on the time, right? Because whenever the time of the score updates, we are going to send the most recent time alongside that. So once you sort for the score, we are also going to sort for the timestamp as well. Okay, so this is pretty much it. So the next thing we are going to be looking at here is to implement it in code. But before I go excuse me, before I talk about the code or walk you guys, let me first of all show you guys how we can do that, like how the logic works. Currently, you can see I have, this is the UI, what we are going to be building today. You can see here we have, let me zoom this out. You can see we have the first screen that showed was the splash screen. Here we have the login screen. I've already built out the UI for this though. We have the login screen, right? So from the login screen, we have continue with Google, continue with Apple. I'm going to show you guys how to set this up, or I'll just give you guys a walkthrough in my code, all right? Because I've already connected the app to Firebase. I think I already talked about Firebase in my previous video, so I'll be dropping the link so you guys can watch it. I don't want to keep repeating stuffs, all right? But I've built out the UI already for this. So looking at this now, let's continue with Google. So I'm just going to click on continue with Google. All right. All right. Okay, so you can see here what is happening. This is the home screen, right? It's more like the dashboard. So we have the name, Hi Destiny Ed, which is the name of the user that is currently authenticated. And we have a logout button. We are going to be building all these things out. Then we have save new score. This is when, let's say, current score now is 20, right? And you can see the view leaderboard. Let's go to view leaderboard. You're going to see how the leaderboard is displaying. We have today, weekly, and all time. So looking at this, we have the first user ranking first, number one, which is Destiny Ed. You can see my score is higher than every other score here, 20, you can see. And here we have score. This one is 0, so it's ranking 3. This one is treasure, ranking 4th. The reason why we have score 0, and different ranking is based on the timestamp. Fortune created an account before treasure, right? So based on that timestamp, I'm putting that one to be third, all right? I know there are also other methods that we can use to handle this to eliminate cheating, okay? But this is the approach I just used to simplify things so you guys can understand it better. And here we have the second user. It's the score is higher than the one of Fortune. You can see Destiny Ed, Grace, Fortune, and Treasure. So if I go back here, mind you, this updates 3 times because I use the stream builder to do it. So here we have a value of 20. If I increment the value to like say 30 and I save new score, all right, loading save. I did not show a snack bar, I'm just logging it in the console. So if we go back to views, you can see now the score is 30, still number one. All right, so this is the basic walkthrough. This is just the all right, so that's the walkthrough for the app, what we are going to build in this video. So I'll quickly shrink this. So let me just give you guys a walkthrough of, I think I increased the size a little. So this is a little bit bigger so you guys can see my screen very well. All right. So looking at this, we have a void main. First, let me just build the app. While it's running, I just want to give you guys, because I've done some basic things already. So here we have our main.dat. I've already connected it to Firebase, right? I told you already. And if you look at our prospect.yml file, you will notice that I have different dependency here. I have provider we'll be using to manage our state. I have Google Fonts. We'll be using it, to just change the font family of the UI. We have animate do. If you notice, when I opened that, like if you go to the dashboard, you can see this bouncing cup here. I use animate do to animate that. Then we have the Firebase core for different Firebase dependency, right? Firebase, Firestore, auth, Google sign in with Apple, and crypto for signing with Apple. So if you notice here now, let me just give you guys some walkthrough as well. We have our Android directory here. Since I've added Firebase, we have the Google services.json, right? And if you come to my iOS open runner, you will see that we have the Google services info.plist file, and we have the reversed client ID. And if you come to the info.plist, I've also registered the client ID inside our info.plist file. This is very important if you want to use Apple authentication, right? You need to set this up. Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about something amazing. We are going to be putting everything that we have learned in our mentorship program in this particular video. So today we are going to be talking about building a leaderboard ranking system in Flutter. So I'm going to give you guys a general guide to show you how to use Firebase authentication, Firebase Firestore to build a leaderboard system. So a leaderboard ranking system is used to display top users based on a specific metric. In our case, we are going to be using scores, but there are different metrics that you can use when you want to build a leaderboard system. You can use scores, you can use achievements or activities, right? So let's talk about the requirements, things that you need before you can build, like things you need to consider before building a leaderboard system. First, you need to consider the ranking criteria. What determines the ranking? Is it score? Is the ranking based on time? Is it based on streak? These are the things you need to have in place before you consider building a leaderboard system. In our case, I'm going to be showing you using scores, right? That's what I'm going to be using for this very example. Then another criteria is the sorting order. Higher score, better rank, or lower time, better rank. Those are just the things you need to consider when you're sorting the items or the leaderboard data. Then you need to look about time scope. So time scope, it's more like the way you want to filter the data. Do you want to filter based on all time, daily, weekly, global, locally, or monthly leaderboard? So these are what you also need to consider, right? The time scope. Then fourth, we talk about user identification. How will users be uniquely identified? Most systems, you can go with their username, their email address, or their user ID. Most times, it's very much advised that you use user ID because user ID tends to be unique across users. Okay, so you can use their username to display them on the leaderboard ranking. Then another thing you need to consider is storage and scalability. Will you use database or in-memory storage? So it's always good you use database. Database is better because it gives you the ability to sync the user data. Since it's a leaderboard, everybody around the world that are using your app need to be able to see their data. So database is very much advised. All right. And you need to implement some kind of real-time functionality. I'm going to show you guys all these examples in this particular video. So stay tuned because the ending part is going to be so amazing. Then let's talk about the database schema for a leaderboard. I try as much as possible to make this video simple, right? Just to give you guys a general guide that will give you an idea in case you want to build your next leaderboard system. And you can use it in your quiz app or any app application at all that requires leaderboard. So looking at this, you can see we have the user board since we are using Firebase. The user board is more like the collection. Then you have the user one, which is like the doc ID. Then inside the doc ID, we have the username, the score, the user ID, which I'll be using to uniquely identify users and update their scores as well. Then the score is what I'll be using to rank the user. Then we have timestamp, okay? So this timestamp, I'll be using it to filter based on weekly dates, and also I'll be using it for some other thing. I'm going to discuss about it later. So let's proceed. So imagine in a scenario where you have ties in the leaderboard. How do you go about handling that? This is where I have two methods that you can use to handle that using first come, first serve. And for you to be able to handle first come, first serve effectively, you need a secondary sorting mechanism, which is first we are going to sort by score, and then we are going to sort by timestamp. So that timestamp is more like who was the first person that got the highest score based on the time, right? Because whenever the time of the score updates, we are going to send the most recent time alongside that. So once you sort for the score, we are also going to sort for the timestamp as well. Okay, so this is pretty much it. So the next thing we are going to be looking at here is to implement it in code. But before I go, excuse me, before I talk about the code or walk you guys, let me first of all show you guys how we can do that, like how the logic works. Currently, you can see I have, this is the UI, what we are going to be building today. You can see here we have, let me zoom this out. You can see we have the first screen that showed was the splash screen. Here we have the login screen. I've already built out the UI for this though. We have the login screen, right? So from the login screen, we have continue with Google, continue with Apple. I'm going to show you guys how to set this up, or I'll just give you guys a walkthrough in my code, all right? Because I've already connected the app to Firebase. I think I already talked about Firebase in my previous video, so I'll be dropping the link so you guys can watch it. I don't want to keep repeating stuffs, all right? But I've built out the UI already for this. So looking at this now, let's continue with Google. So I'm just going to click on continue with Google. All right. So select the account that you want to authenticate with. In this case, I want to authenticate with this one. All right. Okay, so you can see here what is happening. This is the home screen, right? It's more like the dashboard. So we have the name, Hi Destiny Ed, which is the name of the user that is currently authenticated. And we have a logout button. We are going to be building all these things out. Then we have save new score. This is when, let's say, current score now is 20, right? And you can see the view leaderboard. Let's go to view leaderboard. You're going to see how the leaderboard is displaying. We have today, weekly, and all time. So looking at this, we have the first user ranking first, number one, which is Destiny Ed. You can see my score is higher than every other score here, 20, you can see. And here we have score. This one is 0, so it's ranking 3. This one is treasure, ranking 4th. The reason why we have score 0, and different ranking is based on the timestamp. Fortune created an account before treasure, right? So based on that timestamp, I'm putting that one to be third, all right? I know there are also other methods that we can use to handle this to eliminate cheating, okay? But this is the approach I just used to simplify things so you guys can understand it better. And here we have the second user. It's the score is higher than the one of Fortune. You can see Destiny Ed, Grace, Fortune, and Treasure. So if I go back here, and mind you, this updates real time because I use the stream builder to do it. So here we have a value of 20. If I increment the value to like say 30 and I save new score, all right, load in save. I did not show a snack bar, I'm just logging it in the console. So if we go back to views, you can see now the score is 30, still number one. So now let me try to log out from this user and log in with another account that has a different score. So let's say I log in with this guy. All right. All right. This is Culture Destiny. Is it? Right. This is another user. Oops. All right. So that's pretty much it. Everything I want to show you guys. So now let's get started with this. Okay. All right, so this is the basic walkthrough. This is just the all right, so that's the walkthrough for the app, what we are going to build in this video. So I'll quickly shrink this. So let me just give you guys a walkthrough of, I think I increased the size a little. So this is a little bit bigger so you guys can see my screen very well. All right, so looking at this, we have a void main. First, let me just build the app. While it's running, I just want to give you guys, because I've done some basic things already. So here we have our main.dat. I've already connected it to Firebase, right? I told you already. And if you look at our prospect.yml file, you will notice that I have different dependency here. I have provider we'll be using to manage our state. I have Google Fonts. We'll be using it, to just change the font family of the UI. We have animate do. If you notice, when I opened that, like if you go to the dashboard, you can see this bouncing cup here. I use animate do to animate that. Then we have the Firebase core for different Firebase dependency, right? Firebase, Firestore, auth, Google sign in with Apple, and crypto for signing with Apple. So if you notice here now, let me just give you guys some walkthrough as well. We have our Android directory here. Since I've added Firebase, we have the Google services.json, right? And if you come to my iOS, open runner, you will see that we have the Google services info.plist file, and we have the reversed client ID. And if you come to the info.plist, I've also registered the client ID inside our info.plist file. This is very important if you want to use Apple authentication, right? You need to set this up. Aside this, there's also another thing that you need to set up for iOS before you can use Apple authentication. So just click on iOS, open in Xcode, right? I'm going to show you guys the last configuration that we need to set up there. So, all right, it's loading up. So we need to add Apple sign-in capability before we can use Apple authentication in our app. So just give this is taking time to load. All right, I'm going to come back to this screen. Let it just load. Okay, yeah, so here we have it. So what I'm going to do, just come to runner, right? In your runner here, you can change your iOS deployment target to iOS 13, because I also did the same thing inside our pod file. So change this, uncomment it, and change it to 13. That's if you are running for iOS. I think Android, you might encounter some issues, which I don't know for now because I did not test this with Android. Yeah, but you can let me know in the comment section or in the Telegram community. I'm also going to help you rectify the issue. So if you click on sign in and capability, you want to change your theme to personal theme, as if you are using Xcode. Then you come to capability right here. If you scroll down, you're going to see, I don't know if this is the right way. Right, just looking for, okay, let's click on this plus icon here. So just scroll down, you're going to see Apple authentication. I don't know if this is the right place to find that. I don't think this is the right place. Yeah, this is not the right place. This is not the right place. I don't know if it's tied on, I think it's based on the user account. Like after you have registered your Apple ID, your identifier and certificate in Apple developer account website, I think that's when it's going to appear here. It's not supposed. Let me see something. Let me switch to my real developer account and see what happens here. If it's going to show, then that's not it. Just trying to see if I can get. Is it on runner? No, I don't think it's on runner. Yeah, it should be here. Once you come to signing and capability, should be able to select capability, and somewhere around you're going to see Apple sign up, sign in with Apple. Though it's not showing here in Apple Chairs. I think I'm getting more data here. Yeah, sign in with Apple. So this is only available when I select another, like another development account, but it doesn't work. It doesn't show for personal team somehow. Yeah, it doesn't show. You can see personal team is limited. The data are limited. But if I change to a real developer account, right, that I have, you're going to see that we have the push notification. We also have the sign in with Apple. So in your case, if you want to deploy it, make sure you have a developer account already. They can just double tap on that. It's going to show the sign in with Apple capability for us. But this is going to cause errors if I try to run it. So let me just return it to personal team. All right, so I'm going to close this. Just set it to personal team there. I'm going to close this right now. So a quick walkthrough of, that's just what you need to set. Then a quick walkthrough of our project. You can see I've changed the folder structure. Here I have a lib folder and I have my config file. I have my enums. So the enums, we have the today, weekly, and all for the filter headings, right? Then I have the busy, idle, error, and success. This is, if you have been watching my video, you will notice that I always add view state, yeah, to show the loading state. Then I have an extension. This extension is just to show ellipses if the length of the string is very long to fit into that UI. So I just show ellipses to sort that out. All right. Then another thing again you can notice here is I have my features directory and I have my home. I have my features directory. I have my home, leaderboard, and onboarding. So the onboarding, you can see that I have my data, and inside the data, I have my repository directory. Then here I have my presentation where I have my provider, my views, right? If there's any other local widgets, I'm going to create a directory for it. So I'm just using MVVM pattern, like just a clean architecture with separation of concern, just to, make everything clearer. Okay. So if you watched my previous video, I talked a lot about this. So this is something that you can incorporate in your app in case you're a beginner, you don't know the kind of architecture you want to use. Just stick with this one. It's going to make your code clearer and try to separate everything. And this is also utilizing feature first approach as well. So you have all your features separated from other features. So here I have my provider, just auth provider, nothing much has been done here. And I have my splash screen. As you can see in my splash screen, it's just showing a leaderboard system, right? Then I'm checking if the user is currently signed in. So if the current user is no, that means user have not signed in. I'm routing the user to my home page. And if the user is signed in, I'm routing the user to auth screen, all right, to go and sign in. Here we have the auth screen, just basic UI, where you have continue with Apple, continue with Google, and nothing else. So I'm just waiting for this app to run so I can proceed with other things. But here we have our leaderboard. I've not created the UI for the leaderboard. We have our home page. I just created, this is a lot more like the normal boilerplate code that you get when you build a Flutter app. It's just showing the counter, right? And the button to implement counter. So it's just simple, nothing much has been done, okay? So now let's get started with the implementation. I hope you guys are not confused, okay? So here, what I'm going to do, since I have my repository, I'm going to create the auth repository where we are going to be writing all our logics. So here, I'm going to create a new directory and I'll call this auth repository. So inside this auth repository, I'm just going to create the different repository that we need, which is the signing with Google, signing with Apple, and the logout repository. So just import user credential from Firebase auth, okay? So here you can see we have our abstract class auth repository, and then we have the abstract classes, the methods inside. Then we can also create another directory, which is auth repository implementation. Well, let me just keep things easy. and simple for us. So I'll just create the class here, which is auth repository implementation. Then I'm going to implement auth repository, and here I'm going to add the missing implementations. So yeah, you can see we have all of them generated right now. So the first thing we want to handle now is the logout. So logout is basically going to call Firebase auth. Okay, something is wrong. So logout is going to call Firebase auth.instance.signout. All right. And for, let's import Google Auth. This should be package Google Auth, right? Google sign in.this. All right. So this is going to first of all log out from Firebase instance and then sign out from Google, any Google sign in instance as well. This is taking a long time to load. Doesn't happen like this. Let me rerun it. All right, so from here now, I'm going to handle other logics for signing with Apple and signing with Google. So if you notice where this is I normally go through this Flutter Fire website. You go to authentication, you see social auth. You're going to see you see the dependency to use, and you're going to see how to use Google Auth. So just copy this guy. It's just simple, right? Just copy it. So you don't really need to do much in your code. So just copy that, go to your Google sign in and paste it here, right? So this is going to handle the Google sign in for us. So I've already covered this in my previous video. I will be putting the link so you guys can watch it. So, okay. What happened there? All right, so the next thing we are going to talk about now is the ounce. They generate nouns, generate and every other thing. So if you come here for Apple sign-in, you will see that we need the crypto dependency, generate the cryptographical secure random nouns to be included in a credential request. So this is going to help us as well. This returns a SHA-256 hash for us. So the methods are already here for us to use. So what you can do, just come around here, create the method, just copy and paste the method, okay? Convert, import the necessary dependencies. So we have this. You can see that I use underscore just to make them private. So other classes will not be able to access them, okay? So I just made them private inside there. Then the next thing we are going to do now is to go to the Apple Auth, and we are going to implement the logic for that. So if you go here, you're going to see we have sign in with Apple. So just copy the whole of this, okay? And come here and just paste it. So you need to import this one as well. And there's one other thing that we need to put for Apple authentication, though it's not part of this. It's not part of this, all right? So we need to implement that as well. I don't think, yeah, which is if you come to credential, you will see raw nouns. And if you notice in my own here, we have access token, which I've already added. So it's missing here. Always make sure you add it, access token, when you're working with Apple authentication. If not, you're going to get some errors, okay? So right now you can see that our app is currently running, and so far we have everything in place. You can see that we have the Google sign in. We also have the Apple, continue with Apple as well. So this is everything you need to do for the auth repository and auth implementation logic. So the next thing I want to do now is to implement the auth provider. So I will just create, because looking at this, the auth repository communicates with third-party SD APIs, right? If you want to make HTTP requests, network requests, I put them inside the repository. In our mentorship program, I know I use services, right? But now we are changing things to repository. So inside this repository, you just have to write all your network-related logic. Then your auth provider should not have anything to do with network-related APIs. So the only thing it needs to do is to add like a middleman. So the provider communicates with the UI, communicates with the repository. So once it gets data from the repository, it processes it, sends the response to the UI, updates the UI the way you want, right? That's the purpose of the provider. It's just like the view model, like the middleman. Okay, it provides data just like that. So here, let's create our class authentication provider, and I'm going to extend change notifier to notify the states that are listening to this value. So the first thing I want to do is to create an instance to initialize our auth repository implementation, where we are going to be doing all our logic. This auth repository implementation is this whole stuff. So we're going to get the data and all that. Then the next thing I want to do is to create a view state. Remember, the purpose of view state is to show loading states and show error as well. So by default, it's going to be idle. Then the next thing I want to do is to have Google sign in. So inside here, feel free to wrap this with a try and catch to just catch exceptions and all that. So inside this try and catch, I'm not going to be returning any message. I'll just log the data, like I'll just log error message on the console. And then what I'm going to do next is to say final, let's make the request, auth request equals to auth repo. I'm supposed to make this auth repo to be private because I don't want another class to access it. So it should be private. So auth repo dot sign in with Apple should work. Then we can use auth results dot status. No, it should be view state. No. We're going to check if auth result or credential is null, right? Because this auth result is returning user credential, and inside the user credential, we can access the credential of the user to know if the user is, if the authentication was successful or not. So if user credential is equal to null, what I can do is just to say view state equal to view state dot error, and then we can just call notify listener and then return this. Then if everything is fine, everything works well, we can just update the view state to be success. And then I'm going to check something else again. Okay, nothing. Right. You can see it navigated the user, right? But if you notice here, it's showing Cloud Firestore permission denied. The caller does not have permission to execute the specified operation. So in order to fix this, we are going to go to Firebase right here. Let me close this. Right here, we are going to say if request.auth is not equal to null. So you're going to allow read write if the request is not null. All right. Like if the user is currently authenticated, if the auth state is not null. So allow read and write. That's the only thing you need to set for that rules to work. Though there are a lot of rules. I'm going to talk about Cloud Firestore rules in a coming video. But there are a lot of rules that you need to know when you're working with Firebase, and it helps you improve security and also helps you to have this, to reduce unnecessary read and write in a particular collection. Okay, so moving on, we have our home screen. I'm going to implement log out logic here so that users will be able to log out, and then I will try to sign in again. So because this is like this, if you go to our Firebase Firestore collection, you see that nothing was created because there was that error showed and it blocked us from creating user collection. So here I'm going to quickly go to let me go to home screen and view home. Right inside home, we have our app bar. So just clear out all these stuffs. Clear out all these stuffs. So inside here, what I'm going to do is just to show the title should be the username. So we have title here, which is going to be, so we are displaying high destiny head, which is coming from Firebase auth instance current user dot display name. Okay. Then the next thing we are going to do now is to show the action. So the action basically is just going to show this. Sorry, I'm just copying this and pasting, but what happens here is we have an icon button that shows an icon exit to app, and inside the onPress we are calling the auth repository implementation, which is this dot logout. So it's going to call this logic for us. So once we log out, we are going to check if context is mounted, and then we'll navigate the user to splash screen. So see how it works. Once I log out, you can see the user has been removed from the database. We can now, okay, let's re-log in again. I don't want to use Apple Auth. It's still showing that, but I don't want to use Apple Auth for this. Here, continue. And you'll notice that the collection now has been created. You can see that error did not show again. If you go to our collection here, refresh the console, so we have our user board. You can see the user, the ID, doc ID, and you can see current score is 0. You can see the username, the user ID, and the timestamp that it was created. Cool. So that's pretty much it for that. Let's proceed now to building out some basic functionalities, which is more like adding current score, like the home provider to show current score and also show other stores. So I know we're making the video long, but let's create a provider here. I'm going to call this home provider. I'm just trying to take it one step at a time so you guys can understand it, because I noticed I got some messages that a lot of you guys said you were having issues with Firebase and all that. So I'm just taking my time to explain things so you guys can understand. So here we have our home provider. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create this home provider. Basically is going to show, first we need to create a counter, because I don't want this counter to be based on this. All right. We are using ephemeral state. I want to change everything to be based on the provider. So we have our counter here to set counter and all that. Then I'm going to create another logic to implement counter. All right. This is going to handle counter implementation. So let's go back to our main.dat. Here I'm going to duplicate, like I'm going to create another home provider here. Cool. So inside the home screen, what I'm going to do is just to wrap, I'm just going to wrap the UI. Not really to wrap, I'm trying to make things to be simple. So what I'm going to do is to get the counter. So current score, I'm going to update this current score. This should not be this anymore. It should be current score, like so. And the counter should not come from this. I'm going to remove that. So rather, it should come directly from context.watch. So I'm using watch because I want to listen to the data as it's changing real time .counter. Okay. So here, what I'm just going to do is to call this .increment counter. So use read because we don't want to listen to the changes. Just use read. So this works. Then the next thing I want to do now is to create the row rejects that are going to be here. So the row reject, which is going to be, let me use a size box. Height should be 40. Then we have our role, main axis alignment, dot space evenly. That should work. Then we have our children. So I'm going to have the first elevated button here, which is going to have to be, this is going to be, I think more like save new score. like so. And then I'm going to have, let me style it properly. So we have our style. So I'm going to add foreground color and also the background color. So the foreground color is basically for the text, to change the text color, and the background color is to change the icon color. So this is it. Then I will do the second one. For this one should be for view leaderboard. So the view leaderboard is going to take us to the leaderboard screen, which we are yet to create. All right. So from here, what I'm going to do is just to create, we're going to go to the leaderboard screen, and here I'm going to create our data, right? Data. I'm also going to create presentation, right? So the presentation is going to have the repository, right? Not really repository. It's going to have views. It's going to have providers, okay? So the view is going to be the leaderboard screen. So here we have a class, like a stateful widget called leaderboard screen. And what happens here is, going back to the home screen, once the user clicks, it's going to navigate them to the leaderboard screen. So make sure you import the leaderboard screen as well. All right, so that's pretty much it for this one. And you can see when we click on this button, it implements the counter. But now this save new score, it's not doing anything because we are yet to write the logic for that. I want to build out the UI for the leaderboard screen before we consider any other logic, right? To update score and every other thing. So here I'm back to the leaderboard screen. Inside the leaderboard screen, I'm going to be creating a simple UI for the leaderboard. So to work with this leaderboard, I have a dummy data that I'll be showing first before anything. So this is the dummy data that I'll be using for this example. So we just have dummy data that we're going to be showing. So I'm going to remove it later once we integrate everything with Firebase. So I'm going to be using tab bar controller. So this is another opportunity for you guys to learn how to use tab bar to build apps. So the first thing I want to do is, because I'm using an animation, I'm going to use with single ticker state mixing. So this is going to give us additional functionality to work with animations. Then secondly, I'm going to create a tab controller. So I'm going to set it, make it to be late variable because I've not initialized it. So let's say we have a controller here. So I'm going to create an init state. So the init state is going to help us to, this should be tab controller. So we have our init state. And if you notice what is happening here now, when you're working with tab controller, you have your init state where we initialize the tab controller, the late variable. Then we have tab controller, and it takes the length of the controller, and then it takes the vsync where we are going to pass this. Without this, we are not going to be able to use this, right? So we need to implement this one. All right, so that's pretty much it for initializing the tab controller. So moving forward, we are going to create a default tab controller. Then the length of the tab controller is just going to be leaderboard.this.length. Then the child here, we can now put our scaffold widget, right? We can now put our scaffold because default tab controller needs to wrap the whole scaffold widget there. Then we can now put our app bar as well. So the app bar is going to have different things. So I'm going to show you guys that. So we have the app bar that has, I'm using Google Fonts here for the font style. So save that, late init. So let me go back, sorry, and come back, right? So looking at this now, you can see we have our leaderboard, which is the app bar here. Then we have bottom. This bottom is another property inside app bar. It's mostly useful when you want to add tab bar, right? Now we have this tab bar widget. The tab bar widget takes a controller, it takes a tabs. So the tabs is coming from the leaderboard filter, right? This is an enum, and we have 3 elements here. Most times enums act like list, so you can look through it. So we have the leaderboard filter.values.map filter, then we return a tab. So this tab are just these items that you're seeing here, this tab. Then we put the test. If you notice, if I change the test now to something else, it's going to change, right? So we change the test there, convert everything to uppercase, and we have the indicator color, which is blue. You can change the indicator color if you want. We have label color, like the current selected label color, which is blue, unselected label color, which is gray, right? So that works fine for us. Moving forward, we are going to create our padding widget. I know this one is going to take, it's going to be a long one, but just let's proceed one step at a time. So I have my body. Let me add a padding widget. Edge insert.all 15.0 because I want to add padding around it. Then the child now, we can now add a tab bar view. So the tab bar view adds like a column as well. It's going to display all the items based on the tabs. So inside this tab bar view, what we want to do is just to loop through the leaderboard filter dot values, right, dot map. Then we have filter. Inside here, we can just return this one. Then let's just return, for now, let me just return a normal test widget. I want to get rid of, oops, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Okay, this should be, I think, to lists. Something should be to list, yeah. Okay, so if you hover, you can see the items that are going to be displayed. So you can also do something like this to be able to see what is actually being displayed. Leaderboard filter today, weekly, on. All right, something is wrong. Okay, we need to set the controller, sorry. So the controller is going to be the tab controller. So save that. When we change, you can see that is updating today, weekly, and the all. This controller is coming from this controller that we just initialized. All right. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to display the leaderboard list. So instead of having this, what I want to do is to return leaderboard list. And inside here, I'm going to return the users. And the users are going to be this dummy data, right? It's going to be that dummy data. But for now, let's just use an empty string, an empty array, sorry. So just coming below here, I'm going to create the leaderboard list, which is going to be a stateful, or let's say stateless widget. We can call this leaderboard list. All right, leaderboard list. So inside here, I'm going to return, let's create some parameter that is going to take. So you're going to take users, which is more like all the users that are in it. So we have the leaderboard list. Something is missing. Yeah, we have our stateless widget, leaderboard list. We have our list users, right? We have our cons leaderboard list, right? Is it missing anything? Okay. So that's pretty much it. We have our leaderboard list users actually. So inside here, this is a list of map string dynamic. So I can just do something like dummy data dot values dot to list. Oops. No, not that. Nope. But let's say map. All right, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. users list map string dynamic. This should be map string dynamic. Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'm supposed to have list dynamic like so, right? Hope I'm not doing something wrong here. All right, so this should be dummy data. Yeah, so my bad, I actually made a mistake there. So here now, what I'm going to do is if users dot is empty, I'm just going to return a center widget with a child test, and I'm going to say no leaderboard data available. Right? This should work. Then if everything is okay, everything is working as it should, I'm going to sort the user data, sort user by highest score. Here we have the score. I'm going to sort it by highest score. Then from the highest score, I'm going to get top users, like the top 3 users, and also I'm going to get the remaining users. So this logic works for it. Sorted user, we use the list map dynamic from users, okay? Sort based on score, in ascending order, like the highest score to the lowest score. Then we have top users, sorted user to take 3. So I'm taking the first 3 top users after sorting it based on highest score. I'm taking the first 3 users. The remaining users, I'm skipping the first 3 users and then getting the users that follow. So the count starts from 1, 2, 3 for top users. Then the other list shows 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. So inside here now, I'm going to create a simple list. I'm going to create a column that takes a podium top 3 users. So the top 3 users are going to be on the podium, right? And then I'm now going to show the list view that follows. So we have column children. Here we have I'm going to create top podium here, right? And then inside here, I'm going to create expanded widget that takes a list view dot builder, right? I think this video is getting long. Let me just get this stuff here. I already have the UI in place, so we can just get this UI. Let me try to open that file, get the UI. I'm coming. Yeah, so I have it here. So we can just have something like this. So looking at this now, we have the column children, we have the podium top 3 users, right? Then we have the size box that takes the height. Then we have the list view. Now we are passing the remaining users into this list view. We have the leaderboard tie to just show the list view. Then we have an avatar. I mostly use this robo ash. So here we are going to create inside config, we are going to create a constant. So here you can see we have an avatar. We are going to pass the username, http.roboash.org. So the purpose of this roboash, if you go to your website now, paste this roboash, okay, generate unique images from any text. So if you try to put .eve now in name, it shows an avatar for you. If you say Destiny, it also displays a different avatar. So that's the purpose of RoboAsh. So I love using it when I don't want to use any, don't want to upload image to database and all that. So it helps. So the next thing I'm going to create now is the podium top 3 users. So pardon me because I already have the UI. The main thing that you guys need to see here is just the logic, right? Which I'm going to be showing you guys. Here we have the podium top 3 users. And this is it. We have the fade in. widgets from animate to that is going to animate that widget. So the podium top 3 users is taking top users, right, as a list of map string dynamic. Then we have the duration for the fade in. You know, when you change the items, it's going to fade in and give you those sweet animation. We just have a decoration. These are just basic UI that you already know. Then we have the spacing. We have a role. This role is going to show the podium users. So top user dot length, if it's greater than 1, right, then we are going to show the second place ranking user on the left side. Then by default, we are going to show the first place user, which is always existing. I've added comments to make things clearer. It's always existing and it's coming from the 0 index, because after we sorted the item, the first highest user with the highest score is in the first index in the list, then followed by the second one with the index, which is 1. Then we have 2 is going to be on the left. So if top users.length is greater than 2, we are going to put it here, right, which is the third place. So let me quickly create the top podium user. I already have it. So pardon me why I'm copying all these stuff. So I just want to make things clearer. So instead of rushing, let me just explain it again. We have our top podium 3 users. If I save it, right, we have the top user podium. I just remove, like, I extracted the widgets, the UI and everything. I extracted them so it will be easier to understand. Here we have the top user podium, which shows it takes a parameter of rank, username, score, image URL, height, and it's called is champion. So if it's champion, it's going to show that champion cup on top of the user. So let me quickly import these ellipses so you guys can see the UI in place. All right, error. We go back and come back here. So here you can see how it's showing. You can see the avatars taking place immediately. So this is it. We have Charlie, Bob, and Alice. So looking at this now, from this our dummy data, you can see Alice is, Bob has the highest score and is taking number 1 place. Alice is the second, which is, no, I think Charlie is the second with the highest score, and Alice is the third with the highest score. Then David and Eve are the next ones that follows. Okay, so you can see how it's displaying. This is the top podium, and you can see the first user is having that cup there. So to make things better, I'm going to clear, let's move this UI to, let me go inside here. I'm going to create a new directory called widgets. So inside this widgets, I'm going to create podium widgets. So here, just import the necessary files, import the Google fonts, and here we have the bounce in coming from animations, animate do. So here we just have to remove this guy to be public. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So the top podium, now I'm going to go to the leaderboard screen, and instead of having this, let's remove it, all of them, and have import them here. Okay, so I'm just trying to separate the files. Then the leaderboard tie, we can also extract this to the widget. Like so. All right, so I've just separated everything. Now you can see the UI is not looking so large, like it's no more long. So here we have the leaderboard list showing the remaining users, the top users, and we have the podium, top 3 users, showing the users based on their ranking. So this one is always going to show. Let me comment this and show you. Assuming we do not have third place, it's going to show like this. Then assuming we did not have second place, is also going to show like this. Okay, so just know that. And if you notice, I set height for each of them. So this height for the first place user, the height is very long. You can see it's longer than the rest. And its champion, let's say its champion is false now. It's not going to show that stuff there. If we set its champion here to true, it's going to show that stuff on top of it. So, and you can see the height is different and the color here is different. So that's pretty much it, which you can incorporate in your next Flutter project. So now comes the best part of this code, this app. It's more like implementing the leaderboard states and all that. So now what we are going to do is to create, I'm going to quickly create the data repository where we are going to have update user score, get user score, and get leaderboard data. So inside here, I have my data. Then I have my repository. Though I did not use models for this, but it would have been better because assuming we use model, I'll just create the model here and create the repository model. But I'm just trying to keep things simple for everyone to understand. So we have our repository here. So we have the first thing we need to create is the abstract class that takes the repository. And looking at this, we have update score. It takes the new score. Then the get leaderboard data. Remember I told you that we're going to be using stream builder for real time. You're going to be seeing the data as real time. Then we use get leaderboard data and we use query snapshot to return the data. Then we use filter. Based on the filter, it's going to filter out the data for us. Then we have get user score. So this get user score, whenever user opens the app for the first time, as long as you're authenticated, this current score should change to your main current score, right? That's the purpose of having that there. So here we have our class, user board, repository, implementation. Then we're going to implement user board repository. So right here, I'm going to create the leaderboard reference. It's going to be a private variable. Let's create Firebase Firestore.instance.collection. Then we say leader user board, like so. Then here we have the user ID of the user, which is user ID. You're going to get it from Firebase alt.instance.current-user.uid, like so. So the next thing I want to do, since I've already implemented this, I'm going to implement the missing methods. So I've override all of them. So the first method I want to do is to get user score. So to get user score, the method is just simple. We just have to come here, make this a sync here, and inside here, I'm going to call Firebase user doc. Await, let's say from the collection reference, I'm going to say where the user ID, make sure the user ID is matching what we have here, user ID, right? So where the user ID is equal to the user ID, like this, okay? Then we're going to check if user docs, like if it's not empty, that is that particular collection. If it's not empty, what I'm going to do is to get the score, which is user docs.first item rather. Then we get the score. The score is an integer. You can see that. Make sure the name is corresponding to what you're trying to get. Then we can now get the score here and then return 0 if it does not exist. So this is pretty much it. Then the next thing we're going to do is now is to update user score. Where we have the new score, we are just going to update the user score. So I'm going to be using the same approach I used for this one. So let's grab this. So remember the get update user score is returning a bool. So this should be false if everything turns out false. If the update did not work, like if it was not successful, we return false. And if it was successful, we return true. So here I have we have to get the doc ID. user docs, because we're going to update it based on the ID, first.id. So here, what I'm going to do is just to say await leaderboard.doc, then we're going to pass the doc ID here. Then we have update. So update now is this doc ID is more like an identifier. The ID is going to tell the user, tell Firebase the ID, the collection that the user needs to update. The feeds, we just pass the add document, they will pass the ID and then get the update the data from there. So from here we have score, the new score, we are going to pass it, which is this, the new score. You can see that. Make sure the key matches what we have in the database. If not, you will create an additional collection, right? And most times you might get error. Then we have another one, which is timestamp. So the timestamp, we just need to update the timestamp that the user created it, which is value.server timestamp. And that's pretty much it for that one. You can see we have the server timestamp. Make sure it matches the value, the key. So here we are good to go. Then the next thing we need to create is to query, like to get leaderboard data. So let's just get the snapshot. Let's just get a snapshot. So what I'm going to do first, since you already passed filter here, if filter is equal to leaderboard filter dot today, all right. So if it's today, what we are going to do is just to get, let me create some, let's get, first, okay, before I proceed with that, let's just return all-time data. Let's not filter the data first. So let's order it based on score, right? In descending order, and then we have snapshots. Okay, so if it's all time, we are going to filter based on descending order. We are going to get back to this later. I just want to show you guys some few things. So now going back now to our home screen, let's go to our home provider first. When the user comes to this home screen, we need to fetch get user score, right? And I don't want to do it from this. Let's go to home provider first. Inside here, I'm going to create a logic like this, get score, or let's just say get initial score. I'll use try and catch because it's very important you handle exceptions properly in your code. So if there's any error, we can just log. Okay, I'll use the wrong one again. Let's use, can just log, let's say error getting initial score. All right, then we can now get the error like so. Then if we successfully get the score, we can just do score equal to our weight. So now we need to create an instance of the user board repository, just the way we did for authentication. So we have the user board repo equal to user board repository implementation. So inside here, I'm going to make it private because we don't want external classes or methods to be able to access it. So we have to call get user score. So here we can just set the counter equal to score. So this counter equal to score is going to update the UI for us. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Now we can proceed and get initial score. We can now go to our home screen. So from this home screen, what I'm going to do is just to initialize the first. So once users open this screen for the first time, like the home screen, I'm going to call init state and then call get initial score. So call init state context of read home provider get initial score. Okay, so once we get the initial score, the value is going to be updated. Currently, our score is 0, right? So, and this is 8. If I do a hot restart, you will notice that the value is going to change to 0, right? And now if you do increment, we need to be able to save new score, right? Okay. Okay, so now what we are going to do next is to go to the save new score, which is the update score that we already have in our leaderboard repository, which is update new score. We are going to call it. So let me go to home screen. Right inside here, we are going to call async, and I'm going to call await. Let's call our leaderboard state, more like calling. I think I'll just wrap this with, because this is the only UI that is going to listen to that state. This is the only widget that is going to listen to the leaderboard state. So I will reduce it to, I'll just wrap it with that leaderboard. I think that should be, oops, I think I've not created the leaderboard provider, right? I've not created it. So I need to create user leaderboard provider.dat, right? Because I did not create a provider, so there's no way to really work with userboard provider that much. So what I will do here is to create it and then create leaderboard provider, and then here I'm going to extend change notifier. So remember, what's the next thing you need to do after creating provider? You will need to initialize, like register it here. So we have our leaderboard provider, like so. So inside here, I'm going to create an instance of our user board repo, like the repository. So I'll call this user board repository implementation. Then I have my view state, which is going to be the view state, right? View state dot idle. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to create two methods. One is to call, the first one is to stream we have our query snapshots. So I'm going to get leaderboard stream. Okay, let's just say get leaderboard snapshot like this. And I'm going to return userboard report and get leaderboard data. Then we're going to pass the filter. This filter, how do we get filter? Filter is supposed to call, I think, when this thing changes. I believe it has on tab. On tab bar, there's a point where we need to call filter. We need to be able to get comment filter. Okay, we can add listener, right? Okay. All right. So from here now, on top of this, let's say on top, no, this is not going to work. All right, let's make things default for now. Let's say our filter, let's have our leaderboard filter.all. For now, it's going to be all, because if you notice here, we are not really filtering for anything, right? So let's leave it like this. So we are going to go back now to, no, not that. We are going to have another method, which is update score. So here we have our view state. By default, it's going to be view state.busy. then we call notify listener, then we call our try and catch. So the try, you already know. Here we are just going to log an error that says error updating score. Then we log the error out, which is E. Then we have our view state equal to view state dot error, and we have our notify listener. So inside the try and catch, we are just going to have to update the user data by calling this user repository. This should be private. Yeah, it's supposed to be private. Let's add our async here. User board repository dot update score. Then we pass the new score here. Then we have our view state. So the view state should be based on the results. So if result is true, we are going to return view state dot success. If it's false, we return view state dot error, and then we call notify listener. Should be equal to cool. So that's pretty much what we need for this guy. So we are filtering leaderboard based on all. Then we go back to our home screen. Here now we need to pass in the leaderboard provider that we just created, and this should be consumer, and this one now should be leaderboard state. Okay, then here we have to send our leaderboard state dot update score. So the new score should come from context the read, like this. It's coming from home provider, so we're going to use read instead of watch. So we're going to check if leaderboard state dot view state is equal to view state dot error. Like if there was an error, if there's any error when we are trying to update the leaderboard state, we need to just log the error back to the user. All right, just log error updating leaderboard score, just like so. Then we can just return. If everything is successful, we can just log another error and say score was updated successfully. Cool. So that's it. And we need to show a state, right? So let me just show this guy. Leaderboard.viewState is equal to viewState.busy. We can show saving score. Else we show something else. And I know this time I did not use a busy overlay, right? There's a lot of ways you can do things like this. I did not use a circular progress indicator. So right now, let's increase the score. You can see our score is C0. I've increased the score to 10. So I'm going to save new score. You can see saving score. Once everything is saved, you can see we have score was successfully updated. And now you can see in our database, the score has been updated to 10 and the timestamp also has been updated. So now let's go back to our leaderboard implementation. Currently, we are just showing our dummy data. So we need to show real life data that is coming from the database that we just created, okay? So in order to make this work, I'm going to go back to the leaderboard screen. So in our leaderboard screen, I'm going to I'm going to remove, first of all, let me remove this dummy data. We don't need it anymore. It has served its purpose. So inside here, we need to create, let me do some check, because this is now a stream builder, right? Because when we return this guy, let me comment this, right? Inside here, I'm going to say stream builder because you're using a stream builder now. So the stream now should be coming from context.read, right? Context.read. Yeah, context.read. We have leaderboard provider dot get leaderboard snapshot, right? Which is this one that we just created here. Then we have our builder, which is going to be take a context and also a snapshot like this. So first thing we are going to check is if snapshot.has data, I think something is wrong. Snapshot, yeah. If snapshot dot, if it does not have any data, that means it's loading, we can just show a center, a child circular progress indicator. But if there is data, we can now proceed and show the leaderboard list. So the leaderboard list, we need to get the users first, right, from the snapshot. So I'm going to filter that out by saying users snapshot.data snapshot.data docs map. I'm going to map it. Let's have doc here, and this should be doc.data, right, as map of string dynamic. Then next we can do to list, I believe. Yeah, this works. Then the users, you can see now this is actually a list of map string dynamic. We can now pass in the users here. So if I save this, watch what happens. We only have one user in the database. Because we have just one user, it's only showing the user as the number one ranking user in the database. So this is pretty much it. All right, it's getting all the values. So this is it. The next thing I'm going to do here now is to, okay, I was supposed to filter out this data based on all and all the stuff. So I'm going to write the logic for filtering the data. So what I'm going to do is to check here if filter is equal to leaderboard filter dot today. I'll return get snapshots. Yeah. So we are supposed to have a filter like this. So to get today filter, like just for today, we have this logic to handle that. So let me just copy this and paste it here instead of writing it from scratch. So we have a no, I've done something wrong. It shouldn't be here. It's supposed to be inside the repository, yeah? Yeah, the get user repository. So inside here, we have to put this guy. I'm just trying to grab that. I'm copying that here. So here we have leaderboard filter. We have the filter equal to leaderboard filter.today. Then we get the start day. So if the subtract hours, day, time, hour, we are getting the start day. And then we filter based on timestamp first. If it's greater than or equal to time start from date start of day, then we are going to get the score, right, based on today. Then for weekly, we are also going to filter for start of week. Okay, this is starting from Monday, weekday dot -1. So starts from Monday. Okay, so we have the timestamp also filtering by that. We score the sending order, but if it's all time, which is what we are filtering by, it's going to return all time for us. So that's pretty much it. You can see how everything works very well. So now let me show you guys other things that we need to do, because now we just have one user, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log out from this app. and then log in with a new user so that will show you how it works when another user joins the, and we sign in. Once everything is successful, it's going to create the user collection. This it's supposed to update to 0. I think we are doing something else wrongly, but I know it works when we do hot restart or something like that, but it shouldn't be the case. So I know I always encounter errors like this. If you go to your home provider, get user score, when we are calling user ID, most times it's better you just call it directly in the method that is calling it. Yeah, you just call it directly like this. Yeah, it works better rather than having it as a global. I've noticed this a lot in Firebase, and when working with it, when you log out and re-log in, you're going to be seeing the previous user's data. This is one of the issue. So we have successfully removed that, okay, and we have the current score here. If we go to our database, you will see that a new user has been created, Destiny Ed, though the names are the same. Let me view dashboard. We have Destiny Ed, Destiny Ed. The names are the same, so I will just let me update this name to the Destiny Ed 1. Okay, let me update this one. Destiny Ed 1. Okay, you can see it's updating real time as you're updating. Destiny Ed 1. The name is long, that's why you can see that we have that ellipsis there. If I go to our leaderboard screen, in the podium leaderboard screen, and remove I think we have ellipses somewhere. I can't find. Okay, let me go to the config where we have our extension. Try to just return this. You see that it's going to return the full name there. Okay, so but it's best to use ellipses most times, and to make it, you can see now we have the second user, we have the third user, right? So now the second user is 0. Let me try to update the score now. Let me update the score to be higher than this first user, which is going to be like 11. Save score. And if we go to leaderboard, you can see that the score now has been updated to 11, and now automatically becomes the #1 user. You can see that it becomes the #1 user in this stuff. So this works if you sign in with more user, log out, sign in with more users. You're also going to see that the third user is now going to show here. If you sign in again, log in with more users, if you have more users in your app, it's now going to show as a list, the dashboard ties and all those stuffs. So guys, this is pretty much everything I wanted you guys to see about building a leaderboard system. You can see how easy it is. You can implement this if you're working on habit tracker app, if you're working on a game app, quiz app, or any kind of game app that you want to work with, that you want leaderboard to be part of it. This logic, this method is going to help you to get it done. All right, so thank you so much guys for being part of this tutorial. I know it's very long, but you sticked and you stayed, watch the video to the end. All right, you guys are the real MVP. So if you were able to watch to the end of this video, type MVP in the comment section. All right, so thank you so much guys for being part of this. Make sure you subscribe, like, and also share this video with your friends. I'm going to see you all in the next video. I'm working on a comprehensive course. You guys are going to really benefit from this. See you guys in the next video.